Hello, everyone. I have been gone for so long. I don't remember the last time I sat down and tried to record anything. It's been 2 years. The episode that I posted before this was recorded 2 years ago on my birthday, actually, which is why I'd had that whole spiel about wanting to be a little bit more true to myself, express my own individuality, separating myself from the things that I created online prior to and currently. And I'm still continuing it with it right now. I'm not going by right now by my nicknames at all. And it's a little bit freeing, I'm not gonna lie. It definitely changed a lot about how I view myself. I don't, separate my persona that I may have on the internet to who I am in real life. And I think that change has also been expressed by other people. I know that a lot of famous or not have decided to go by and use their real names in order to express their creations to the world, to show off their creations to the world, and as well as other people's ideas of how to, what entails an influencer, what morals should they carry, what should their influence really be. We're going to be talking throughout this entire podcast how a lot of our sense of self, our individuality, our morals, our opinions, our values are significant to the greater cause, to the world, to society as a whole. I mean, we're all individuals in a bigger bunch. We all take part in the world as human beings, in, this society that we live in. All of our ideas, our values, our morals all have some sort of importance, some sort of value to the world and to the future as well. Whatever we choose to express and how we express it right now carries on to how we will express it and show it off in the future, how we will teach it, how we will mold it to help better or form future societies. The same way our grandparents did, our parents did, is the same way we will do it for the future generations. And I feel like as a society, we are currently living in the present. We don't tend to focus a lot in the future, how we can better it, how we can move it forward, how we can genuinely strive for something better, for something more peaceful. And a lot of these conversations are stunted in the idea that we only live once. I don't really know how to describe that. We all live in a very present world, and I do want to understand that. I do want to express that I do understand that it's very important to live in the present, but we can also live in the present by working for a better future. And I feel that it's complicated to have these sort of conversations because we genuinely have to do a lot of introspection about who we are and what we stand for, and whether or not we're actually willing to make a change within us in order to make that change possible outwardly. Something that currently happened, and I'm actually kind of glad that I was able to hold off on recording this episode, was Taylor Swift's engagement. I feel like it's honestly memorable. This relationship that she showed off with Travis Kelce, I'm not even gonna play with you. It's different. Besides her going off with somebody who's not in the arts and is rather in sport, clash of industries is genuinely memorable. As someone who is currently studying marketing, I remember a lot of people going into these football games with references of Taylor Swift, and I know that I have saw some conversations on the interwebs about people actually showing interest in learning about football because of Taylor's new partner. And I find that fascinating. I'm not gonna lie. It it shows how some it shows the importance of exposure through familiar means. And we see this all the time, with people that reference your friends, for example. They tell you about this certain product that they enjoyed, and you're like, you see it on the store, and you're like, you know what? Let me try it out. And then whether or not you like it, and you continue to use it or not. We see this all the time. It's something that genuinely interests me, which is why I went into marketing, to learn more about that sort of drive. What makes people want to do certain things, like the psychological aspect to consumerism, or yeah, that consumerism, because that is what it is. And I feel like we see it a lot currently, as well as with Taylor Swift's new engagement. Not only did people literally buy out the dress that she wore on those engagement photos, but it's a reminder of the clash of talent, that happened when they decided to form a partnership, Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift. It's wonderful, truly. It's crazy to see it happen in real time, and it's really interesting to see how it affects and how it motivates people to purchase football tickets, or purchase a dress, or purchase a replica of the ring. It makes people do something. It's an actionable effect that it has. And it reminded me a lot about the conversation that people have on gentrification. I think that there's a lot of, okay, by the way, if you do not know, I am from New York. So this conversation about gentrification, about transplants coming into the city and ruining it, has been awake since I can remember. I remember, having conversations young, saying that, tourists are, they are important to the economy of the city, but they are very iffy to deal with because they're not used to the city rhythm. They tend to not walk as fast. They tend to not do certain things that, as a person that lives here, knows that you have to do certain things to, like, get the hell out of the way in order for people to keep it pushing, and that doesn't translate to a lot of people that come here. In the recent years, actually, the city has made a push to, how do I say it that doesn't sound crazy, has made a push to move people around the city and go to places where there hasn't been as much as many transactions as there used to be, or there could be. There in Met Willets Point, on the 7 train, there is the stop Met Willets Point. The Met Stadium is there, and there is a really beautiful park, Flushing Meadow Park, that, it's also there. Very profitable attractions that can lead to more transactions, monetarily speaking. The city hadn't been allocating funds as to the area, and the city has been using eminent domain, or had been, or used it, in order to take up a lot of the properties that were closed and not in use, or closed businesses, and to use them for the purpose of getting tourists and people that live in the city but don't tend to come to this part of Queens. Um, and that's why we are currently seeing, I'm not gonna lie, I personally feel like has been more Mets games in the past 5 years than there has ever been, but that could just be me. I'm not a big baseball fan, and I also don't root for the Mets, even though I'm from Queens. I am so sorry for that. And they opened the US Open at Flushing Meadow Park. So with this sudden surge of, more, let's just call it how it is. There has been more white people in the area, and it's very noticeable. I'm not gonna lie, I personally, because it does get in the way of my day-to-day activities, I don't like it. It has flooded so many people to the area that at points the freaking trains are horrible to deal with. But that's just me about that, and probably everybody that has to deal with the idea of getting on a train during a Mets game day. It's horrible. The trains are slow, they're packed, and you know that you will have to deal with people that don't know how to ride a subway. How to ride the subway. And that kind of leads us into the talk about transplants and gentrification and how that has affected the entire city's ecosystem. The way that a lot of people have complained that the clubs aren't the same, of the way that a lot of people have complained that many long-standing businesses have shut down. It's heartbreaking to see, especially when you have lived here practically your entire life, knowing that these businesses that have been standing for so long, for so many years, that you have, been a patron to during those years, it breaks your heart to know that a lot of the people that used to live here no longer live here due to them being pushed out because of the rent or because of COVID. They either moved out or they passed away. The sudden realization that because of these very sudden changes occurred, and in the case of COVID, extremely traumatic, the city will never be the same. And that has given a gateway to the change that we're currently seeing in New York. This conversation about how transplants want to change the city, it's very real. I'm not gonna lie. The way that a lot of them express themselves about, the long-standing traditions, that we have had in this city, the silent rules of the etiquette, right? When you grow up, you learn these very quickly, and it's easy to absorb when you're a child, because you're like, okay, everybody is doing it, so obviously I have to do it. That's how this works. That's how everything runs smoothly. And seeing that a lot of transplants get hit with the sudden reality that there are social rules, there is an etiquette to this madness, there is something to it, right, that gives social order to it, and they want to believe that they can just come into the city and run it like their own private park. It's very apparent. It's very apparent. And I understand. It's not your city. You are coming here to live out a dream, a fantasy, that you've watched through a lot of movies or shows or songs. This media, the fact that This city has been promoted as the city that never sleeps, the concrete jungle. It gives you like that little thing of, wow, this is madness. This is crazy. And in this madness, I can be whoever I want to be because nobody knows me. Go ahead. You can do that. Everybody has the ability to do that. It's just the fact that this is very unuseful when you go up ahead and you don't follow the social order that has been established and continues to be established by Native New Yorkers. It's so disheartening seeing that a lot of the times, like I've said, they come here expecting to live out their dreams and fantasies, but they don't acknowledge the fact that a lot of people are not living a dream in this country and they're living their day-to-day lives. They are literally going out, working, and doing the most in order to provide that dream life that you so necessarily want. And it's sad to see how a lot of the times transplants come in and want to, establish that power, the dynamic that they are capable to live out this wild fantasy, while everybody else gets to play a part in their own fantasy, in the transplants' fantasies, as we said. And that's something that needs to be corrected. I'm not going to lie, a lot of the times when transplants say that, XYZ thing, they don't like because it goes against their own notion of what they believe. And it's like, okay, you don't like it. I agree. You have the ability to complain all you want. You don't have the power to make other people do what you want. With that being said, I do want to clear the air. I'm not against people moving into the city. Quite the opposite. I do believe that people moving in from all parts of the world is genuinely helpful to further the growth and the idea of New York City being a melting pot. And I do understand that a lot of people saying it takes time. It takes time to adapt to live in a new place. It takes time to learn the new rules, and obviously you want to vent and show how hard it is to, live in a new place and learn how to adapt to all the unspoken rules, all the etiquette that I have been saying. It's hard, especially as an adult. Sometimes unlearning certain aspects that you have grown up in is hard to unlearn. But that's why when there's conversations about code switching, which a lot of POC have, it comes as, something that you should learn and understand that, hey, sometimes you do have to code switch a little bit. You do have to get into the groove that, not everything is how your hometown is, or not everything is how being with your family is. There's a lot of, things that you need to learn and unlearn at the same time. But it with that being said, the further conversation about transplants and gentrification is the exclusion and the expulsion of Native New Yorkers that have lived here for tens of years. And a lot of them have lived hundreds of years in this city that are being pushed out due to rent or due to the fact that they haven't been able to own homes. And that's a real conversation, and that's something that people need to further, address, especially the city. The way that this economy has diminished the value of native New Yorkers in this city and their hard work that they've done to make the city what it is today is immense. The fact that there is no promotion of native New Yorkers for home ownership, or the fact that there is very little help economically in order to get them the resources such as food or a freaking roof over their heads is insane. The lack of genuine, how would I word it? There is no repercussions for landowners that rent out their homes in unsafe states. It's insane, the fact that a lot of people, I believe at this point, like thousands, every single year, almost every single month, there is another building burning down due to the lack of poor maintenance. Really, that's it. There's poor maintenance in this building, whether it be pipes, whether it be wires, whether it be something. It burns down, floods, there's mold in the freaking walls, on the ceiling, on the floors, and tenants are being forced out and are literally being silenced, and landowners are not, upkeeping their property to the safest standards possible for their tenants. And that is something that, is constantly talked about, but there is very little help being given to a lot of people. And unfortunately, it does affect a lot of the elderly population most of the time, which just further proves how this city isn't able to, or doesn't want to, upkeep native New Yorkers, and doesn't want to value all of their hard work and dedication that they did for the city. And once there's no longer any profit to them or from them, they're quite literally slowly discarded and slowly pushed out, and until there is no longer, a solution to their problem, somebody leaves. It's sad. It's sad. And I'm not gonna lie, I don't have solutions. I have propositions. And I feel like I'm definitely not the right person to talk about this, but it's definitely there is something magical to the city that gravitates to everyone. Not only the fact that it is New York City, it is the city of dreams. But it's a place where you can quite literally come in and build your own destiny and show off who you are and work your ass off, because that's one thing for sure that a lot of New Yorkers do. They work their asses off. Doesn't matter when, doesn't matter how, but there is a hustle almost every single day. And that is the magical aspect of this city. It allows you to grow and become who you want to be. But it also destroys a lot of who you are at the same time. And I mean that more in the fact that you're constantly working, you're constantly overworked, and at times you are burnt out. And it's sad to truly try to, constantly live with the idea that there has to be a hustle, that there has to be further movement and further progress to something attainable and something that you can, you know, show off to others. That's the beauty, that's the evil, that's what makes New York City. And I feel like that's what makes a lot of major cities. This constant shift, this constant idea for there to be more, for dreams to be achieved is something that makes cities what they are. And I feel like that's why a lot of people have issues with transplants. That's what I have a lot of issues with transplants, is because they move into this city and don't claim the full idea and sense of New York. There is so much beauty to New York, and there's so much more to New York than just Manhattan and Brooklyn. There is a sense of progress that needs to happen and needs to be actually inhaled, I guess, in order to make you understand that you're not the only one living in this city. You are part of a bigger collective that works together to make this city what it is. But there is this strong division between people that have been here for years and people that have just recently moved in. And you can see it so apparent. I'm not gonna lie, I am possibly part of the problem with that strong division. I guess there is some sort of reluctancy to want to associate with transplants and want to just keep to myself and keep to the people that I already know and keep to that. But there is so much more to be enjoyed about New York than just coming in and trying to live out your dream of whatever art, business, I don't know. There's so much more. There is so much more. And there has to be a realization that you are part of the community. You're not an exclusion to it. You have to take part in it, right? Just just inhale this city. Thank you for listening to my little rant about gentrification. Again, I do not know what the main solution has to be. Just constant involvement in your community, I guess. Be involved in, or take awareness in the community that you're part. But gentrification will not fix itself unless rent is freezed, or there is a control on rent prices, because that's inherently what's ruining the city. People are being pushed out because they can no longer afford to live here. And I'm not gonna lie, people work so hard to not be able to afford, or to have to pay more than half of their work. Well, how do I say, more than half their salary? They're more than half their wage to be able to live, to be able to at least have a roof over their head. No, don't mind any food. No, just the rent. Like, that's how serious this is. And it's sad. It's sad to note that, there is no sense of protection for the people that actually live here when it comes to the fact that there is no protection to the people that you know um have worked here so hard, um and that's the things that they get pushed out, and pray that you find another place. That would be all for today. I again want to thank you for listening, for enjoying my company, and I hope that you have an amazing day. Don't think too much about what I just said. I am very pessimistic when it comes to my rhetoric, what I believe, but there is a shred of optimism um, in my own brain here. Uh, Change is possible. Again, I do want to say I am part of the problem, and I will fix that. I will try to find a way to make myself maybe a slightly bit more tolerant to the fact that people are, new to the city and possibly need, some time to get acclimated to it. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week, and I will see you, or you'll listen to me, next week on Wednesday. Bye bye.